standing here at one of the largest universities that I think I've ever seen. Would you say morality is objective, something external that everyone needs to adhere to, or would you say it's subjective, something we all can just make up on a whim?
It's made out to be objective, but I think it's subjective.
Okay, so if I wanted to pull out a gun and shoot you guys, which I'm not going to do, but if I wanted to,
Right.
would that be... I mean, you couldn't say it was right or wrong.
Right.
Because, hey, there's no absolute standard by which we must adhere to.
That's true.
So you think that is true?
Yes.
Now, the God of the Bible, you see, he is what I believe to be the objective moral giver. As soon as we start saying, I'm not going to listen to what God says, I'm going to make up my own morality, that's when things like the Holocaust happens. Because Hitler will say, thou shalt not kill, nah, let's kill the Jews. That's what happens when we get rid of the objective moral giver.
PCS's argument in this clip is essentially that the presence of an objective moral code is only explainable by the existence of a God. Unfortunately for him, there's another explanation which he's all too eager to overlook, and that is evolution. You need to keep in mind that it is not an individual which evolves, it's a population. So there are certain traits such as lying and stealing and murder, for example, which will help out one individual at the sacrifice of an entire population. Now, if traits like these are allowed to proliferate, the population is detrimented and the species is likely to fail. This is why this universal code can even be seen in animals. Thunderfoot did a phenomenal example in pointing out that even piranhas, as vicious as they are, never really attack and kill each other. Why? I mean, they'd be able to get extra food, but it's detrimental to the society. It's for these reasons that you don't see, quote-unquote, murder and things like that in the animal kingdom, and even animals, such as dogs, have a sense of inherent right or wrong fairness. It's worth pointing out that subjective morality predominantly rears its head in the form of religion. After all, there's nothing inherently wrong or violating the universal moral code about passing out contraception, is there? I mean, yet there are the Pope, for example, going into Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, where AIDS is rampant, and people are dying of AIDS, preaching to them that contraception is evil, and that, you know what, AIDS is bad, but condoms are worse, and this leads to millions of people dying. Well, unfortunately, this is an example of subjective morality run amok in the name of religion.
Every one of us has told a lie, every one of us has stolen, every one of us has done something wrong at some point in our life, and if you haven't, we're gonna. That's just how it works. Now, Phil, you were more modest, and you said, yeah, just outright, I'm a bad person, I'll admit to you guys, I've done things wrong in my life too.
Yeah, everyone said that.
Okay, so God says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and the wage, a wage is something you earn, like at a job, the wage of sin is death. The reason we're going to die one day is because God has judged the world, and he says we're all going to die because of that. We've sinned, we deserve to die. Does that sort of make sense?
Kind of.
Okay.
It does.
So, like, if you have a sin, you die?
Yeah. Let's say death entered the world through sin. We're all going to die one day because we're sinners. The Bible then also says God is just.
Now take a look exactly what PCS is doing. This is exactly how cults operate. The first thing that they do is they try and break you down. They tell you that you're a worthless human being, you're a sinner, you're a liar, you owe things basically, and that you deserve to die. So after they've got this established, step 2 is to simply build you back up, through them of course. We know you're a horrible human being, but if you follow us, if you follow Jesus, if you follow X, Y, and Z, you can be built back up. So they automatically have you built down, and subconsciously wanting to pull yourself out of that hole, you follow them. That's exactly how cults operate, and that's the underhanded sort of trick that PCS is doing right here in this clip.
At least ask yourself, if there's even a possibility that that is slightly true, then I want to get right with God. Or at least investigate what I'm saying, and find out if it's true or not.
The problem with this, of course, is that he's completely disregarding every other god mankind has invented throughout the course of human history. Has he gotten right with Zeus and Poseidon, I wonder?
You said that handicapped people deserve to be handicapped?
No. What I said was, we all deserve to die. Okay, that's the wage of sin. I was explaining this to this guy. So people who are born with handicaps, we're all not deserve. It's not like God is. It's not that God is saying you deserve to be handicapped, so I'm going to make you handicapped. If God is not actually actively making people handicapped, which I think a lot of people misunderstood me. What I was saying
but
is...
you said that they deserve, like you're quoted as...
I quoted the Bible, which says the wage of sin is death and we deserve to die.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
See you guys.
Also nice to meet you.
All right, let's answer that one. That's a good question.
Okay, sure.
As soon as man sinned against God, there was a separation. If God is perfect and we became imperfect by disobedience, there is a separation. That separation is the cause of all the imperfections we see in the world. It's not from God, it's from the lack of God.
So you're essentially arguing that original sin is what causes birth defects, these millions of infants to be born with terrible, debilitating diseases which cause a lifetime of suffering, and oftentimes that lifetime is very short. Well, there are a couple of problems with this argument. First of all, is that do we not all inherit an original sin in an equal amount? If we did, we would expect us all to be born with a relatively equal amount of this, wouldn't we? I mean, why do some babies get more original sin and get these terrible defects and others don't? The second problem is that if these birth defects are due to a 6,000-year-old rib woman's sin, if we cure those defects, are we not absolving those babies of that sin? For example, if there's a cleft palate and we give the mom folic acid, is folic acid absolving that baby of its sin? Because it's preventing the cleft palate, it's preventing the ramifications of that sin from manifesting. I mean, after all, the birth defect is solely due to sin, correct? The third problem with this argument is simply that if these ailments are due to a lack of God, wouldn't we expect to see a higher rate of them in atheistic countries? We don't see that at all. Also is simply the sense of scale. If you believe that these terrible, terrible birth defects that happen to these infants and that just cause so much suffering, if you believe that is a fair punishment for a 6,000-year-old magical rib woman listening to a talking snake and eating a magical piece of produce, then you have issues. You're frankly insulting their condition, and it's just primitive and evil of you. Also keep in mind that this promotes a very dangerous mindset. You have these diseases, and oh, well, we don't need to find a cure, they're due to sin. The baby deserves it. In fact, this baby deserves to die for something it never did. Why do we need to find a cure? It deserves it. You know, this is exactly what hinders scientific progress and scientific progress, just progress for society as a whole.
Thou shalt not lie and steal. God has designed us so that we would know Him. That's why people innately are drawn towards the existence of God. So I think you believe...
Not quite. Unfortunately for PCS, the reason that human beings have this innate sense of God simply comes from evolution. So, think about it from a young age. There's darkness in the closet. What do? You project some sort of conscious entity there. You say that there's a boogeyman, there's a man under the bed, there's anything that's unknown, you project a person to it. That's why it's also Mr. Toothbrush, so on and so forth. So how could this really arise? Well, think about it. Go back to the days as back when you were on the savannah, or your ancestors were, rather. There are two types of mistakes that they could do, or that they could make in dealing with predators, okay? You're at the watering hole and you hear a noise. The first mistake is that you could determine that there is a predator out there when there isn't, okay? So it's just a noise, nothing's really there, but you say that there is. So you go and you run off. You spend your 100 calories running off, but you live. And if there would be a predator there, you would have a 100-yard head start. The other type of mistake that you could make is that you could say that there is not a predator there when there is, and that'll cost you your life. So human beings are automatically wired to err on the side of there being one when there is not. It's sort of a false positive. So this is exactly why we have this innate ability to project some sort of conscious entity into the unknown. Thanks again for your time, guys. My goal in this video wasn't necessarily to bash Christianity as much as it was to clear up some misconceptions and expose some of the dishonest tactics that these evangelists can use. Well, now here you go, your moment of Zen.
Deep in the woods of North Carolina, an extremist eco-group called Earth First bewails the violation of American nature.
I want to mourn the loss of all the old growth trees I've seen, and tell them that we love them and that we don't want them to die, that there are some people here who do care. So I want you to know that, trees, that we care.